Great to be here. I mean, it's just so cool to be here with y'all and get to do this really special induction for me. I've loved Bobby Hicks' fiddle playing as long as I can remember hearing Bill Monroe records. All those great songs that he did, those were creative block building times for me. And learning to play fiddle, I wanted to be able to learn to play big man and all that, and it was just like, Bobby, show me how you do that. It was 25 years later, 30. Anyway, he is the undisputed king of double stops and a fiddle player equally, yes he is, double stop hero. And he's equally at home playing country, western swing, and bluegrass. Bobby Hicks was born here in Carolina in 1933. Son, you're getting old, Bobby. His first job with Bill Monroe came while he was still in his mid-teens, when Mr. Monroe needed a bass player for a couple of weeks, and then he returned briefly not long after that, and this time on fiddle. He also subbed on banjo as well. I see it on YouTube. You can see Bobby playing the banjo. And as a musician, he came in the early 1950s when he went to work for Jim Eanes. And he recorded a dozen sides for Jim Eanes in 53 and 54. But his first session with Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys came on New Year's Eve at the end of that year. And what a session that was, good Lord. In 3 hours, they recorded Wheelhouse, Cheyenne, Roanoke, and you'll find her name written there. 4 of Mr. Monroe's most memorable songs. Yeah. Here's Bobby kicking off one of my favorite songs, Uncle Pen, with Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. All right, Bobby. Yes, sir. Ho! Yeah! Yeah! That's it, kids.
Oh, I'll never forget that morning day when Uncle Ben was home away. They hung up his bow, they knew it was time for him to go. And about sundown, how he hears in the bush. Played his fiddle on a house that rang, you heard talk, you hear it sing.
That's where we came from, kids. Let's don't ever forget that. And I'm including myself in that. So, yeah. Learn where you come from, then you can go. But first, learn where you come from. All right. This is Mad Mun. I didn't take this from the Hall of Fame, okay? That had been armed guards all around me if I had it. But this is a creation here that me and Dave Harvey's been doing a little spare time. But more work as a bluegrass boy came over the next few years, and the titles which Bobby played on are some of the greatest this music has ever known. Tall Timber, Brown County Breakdown, Scotland, that's a powerful number right there. Big Mun, Stony Lonesome, and a whole lot more. But steady work out west was calling Bobby, and for nearly 20 years he played and led bands for country singer Judy Lynn out in Nevada, while the influence of those recordings he made with Mr. Monroe continued to spread. We got another video. Oh, no, okay. Am I supposed to keep going? Sorry. There's something. Okay. I'm not used to these political readouts here. Okay. Bobby came back to North Carolina in 1975, occasionally playing and recording with local and regional groups, including the Shenandoah Cut-Ups, which is one of my favorites. That's where he was when he made his first solo album, the half Western Swing and half Bluegrass Texas Crapshooter. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's where he was when I gave him a call to come and join my newly formed bluegrass band. Oh, there's Bobby. What a doll. While he spent, oh, I couldn't see the while. Yes, while. While he spent nearly another 20 years working with me, he also gave a whole series of brilliant bluegrass fiddle lessons to the world through the recordings he made with the Bluegrass Album Band. Yeah, that is just nasty good stuff right there. Yes, it is, yeah. Between 1981 and 1996, records that introduced new generations to the classic songs made Bobby one of the most influential fiddle players in the history of bluegrass. Hicks and Skaggs. I don't see Skaggs. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Okay. Let me tell you a little bit more what it meant to have Bobby Hicks on stage and in the studio with me as we made great records like Wouldn't Change You If I Could. Oh, that's a Jim Eanes tune. And Crying My Heart Out Over You and Uncle Pen. Oh, my goodness. I got to re-record that just so I could have Bobby play it. Let me tell you a little about Bobby. Bobby was a gadget man. He just loved gadgets. He loved little things that, he loved computers. He loved cars, the radio cars, and he busted one up so bad one time. It was like a $300 car, and he was mad for a month. But anyway, he had this. He got this watch that. It was about that wide. I mean, it was huge. It didn't look like a gangster watch or something like that, but it was really big. It's kind of like a computer watch, and it was one of those kind of things that it would kind of, I mean, you could program it. You could find a television like Sony, and you could program it to be able to be a remote control. So when we had dinner at for lunch at a sports bar or something like that, where they was watching all these dang games and stuff like that, just loud roaring people, Bobby would wait. Well, he would zero in on that old Sony and get that thing just ready. And one time, this guy was making this Hail Mary, full of grace pass down the, and people were going, and Bobby changes it. To the Home Shopping Network. I mean, it just went there. And it was just like, of all places, Bobby just pushed a button. But that was the kind of antics we had with Bobby. And so many more I just don't have time or permission to tell from Bobby. But I always knew that Bobby would play what the song needed because he listened to me. He listened to the way I sang. And he didn't listen to himself and what he was doing. He listened and tried to compliment me. And that was one of the great things that Bobby did because of his upbringing, listening to all of his heroes like Tommy Jackson and, Dale Potter and people like that. And I just love that. And his intonation and his tone, it was just always on the money. And Mr. Monroe was asked one time, Mr. Monroe, who was your favorite fiddle player that ever played with you? And he said, well, I've had a lot. I've had a lot of fiddlers, but I believe Bobby Hicks was the truest fiddler I ever had, meaning intonation. His touch and his true intonation. So. Anyway, that's a big compliment, Mr. Hicks, I'll tell you that. So we can roll on up. I think I've already mentioned that, and I forgot. Okay. When it came to teaching, Bobby would be proactive with my bandmates. Believe me, he would find, because we would have these, like Lou Reed, for instance. He played in my band for a while, played banjo and played guitar, but he also played fiddle. And so Bobby would just dog him to death, to get that part right. And so. He wouldn't wait for me to say, Bobby, go get them, you go do that. He'd just take them off and here we go. We're going to have a fiddle lesson here for about 6 hours. And so what would happen, we'd only have 2 fiddlers sometimes, instead of 3. And so Bobby would just let that guy play lead, and then Bobby would play 2 parts. Of crazy mind. He's a freak of nature. So, I thought, man, those suckers got it so easy, don't they, Bobby? Anyway, Bobby always wanted, that was one of the things I loved about him too, is he thought that the fans and people that come to see us, they deserve to hear the record. They deserve to hear what they was listening to, well, I say on our LPs, days gone by, last century. But he just thought that they deserved, if they just want to pay $30 for a ticket, they should be able to hear what the record sounded like, And so he wanted those fiddles to be great, and I always appreciate that about him. And Mr. Monroe said one time, a record is forever. Think about that. Once you record a record, it's out there forever, so do it good. And Bobby took that real seriously. Integrity, honor, and loyalty. Bobby's with me over 20 years. And that was some character traits of Bobby that blesses me, to this day. Bobby remains an active musician, performer, and recording artist, and sharing his craft with new generations of fiddle students. In fact, not a day goes without fiddle players all over the country, and probably around the world, playing licks, Hicks licks, that they learned from Bobby. And you'll hear the master himself in just a moment. But first, please join me in welcoming Bobby Hicks as the newest member of the International Bluegrass Music Association's Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Bobby! Bobby, it's carving knives.
It must be. I don't know what else I could say after all of that, Ricky.
Oh, that was a lot.
I sure do appreciate you doing that.
You're welcome.
We love you too, I think. Oh, I don't know what to say. I want to thank the IBMA for this wonderful honor. So good. And I want to thank my wonderful wife for putting up with me with what I have to do.
Yeah, she needs a medal or treatment.
Yeah, she needs somebody else sitting beside of her too. That's okay. Oh. And I want to thank all my family, just about all my children and all my grandchildren, all my great-grandchildren are all here tonight. My son came all the way from Las Vegas, and my granddaughter from Las Vegas, and his wife, they all flew in just for this thing here. And I sure do appreciate them being here. Some of them I haven't seen for a long time. And it's good to see them all again. Oh, Ricky, I don't know what else I can say.
Well, Bobby.
Well, all right.
Bobby, you say it best
This-
when you play that fiddle, son.
This man was my boss man for 22 years, and I enjoyed it very much.
We never had a crossword, did we?
No,
Had a few puzzles.
Yeah,
No
a lot of
crossword, yeah.
puzzles. Yeah, that's about it.
We got along so well, and I always knew that when you came to work, you were ready to go, and you played your heart out every night, and that's what meant so much to me.
Well, that's the only way to play is from your heart.
I told you! That's right.
And if you can't do that, you might just as well hang it on the wall and just look at it every once in a while.
Yeah.
But again, thank you so much. I appreciate this more than you'll ever know. Thank you.